This is Professor Dr. Moin Akhtar from DrMchem Institute of Chemistry, University of St. Jamshoro, and I'm very much here with another interesting topic. Last time I explained you how you can switch from a high carb diet, that is diet that contains high amount of carbohydrates to simply switching from a high carb diet to a low carb diet. And I've explained you what are carbohydrates, right, and what are simply how you can simply reduce the high levels of carbohydrates by switching over to a low carb diet, and which foods are included in the high carb diet and which are included in your low carbohydrate diets. And I've explained you also in my last lecture about that the ketogenic compounds. What are keto compounds? What are ketogenic compounds? How can you switch over to a ketogenic diet for a period of, for some time, not for a longer period of time, because it was designed for the epileptics in the beginning, so you cannot proceed it for the long durations of for long periods of for longer periods. So you need to be on this ketogenic diet for a short period of time, and during that time you will be able to maintain a balance between a high carb and a low carb diet. So that was all I explained you in my last lecture. Today I'm going to explain you something about the topic which I have explained, which I have mentioned in my last lecture, that what are carbohydrates. So simply you need to know what are carbohydrates and why I'm switching to this interesting topic now. Daily and on daily basis, we are having lots of carbohydrates in our foods. We consume a lot of carbohydrates, and of course now they are also referred as simply you can simply say that to stay healthy we do need these, they provide us nutrients, right? And for of course we do, to have a healthy life, we do need these carbohydrates in our life. So this simple refers to the to be present in our drinks and foods, and for example sugars in the sugar form, in the form of a sugar, and of course the foods that are easily convertible into the sugars after it. So carbohydrates simply refers to the sugars that has a molecular formula CxH2OY and are called carbohydrates, that is hydrates of carbon, because for example you have a table sugar, and that is a very good example, also called sucrose, right? Sucrose, and having a formula that is C12H2O11 or C12H22O11. So now a bit advanced definition of a carbohydrate, I am going to explain it to you right now in my on the board, because I thought that I must explain you all these things on the board so that you can learn how some carbohydrate structures and the difference between different types of carbohydrates, starting from the monosaccharides and the polysaccharides, and and the further if you move on further, you will be having much more detailed structures of carbohydrates. Now, carbohydrates are also called macronutrients. Now, what are macronutrients? Of course, macronutrients are simply, these includes fats and proteins, right? And our body definitely needs these macronutrients to be perfect in shape and to stay healthy. We do need these macronutrients. So now I will jump or switch over to the other section, which is very also much interesting, and I would like you to have a few words of that also. So like I just said, I'll jump to this section now. Carbohydrates. Now, what are carbohydrates? Of course, I've explained you. Now they are present in drinks, of course, and different type of foods. I have shown you different pictures also in my previous lecture, and for example fibers, right? Fibers or fibrous foods, or sugars, which I have just mentioned, right? Sugars, and of course they are also they can also be referred as carbs, right? Carbs, this is the short form carbs, or a macronutrient, right? You can also call it macronutrient, as it contains fats and proteins, right? So these simply refers to the sugars that has the molecular formula CxH2O Y. right? They are the compounds that refers to simply sugars and has the molecular formula CxH2OY and are called carbohydrates, that is hydrates of carbon, right? Examples I've shown you: sucrose, fructose. These are all the simple sugars, right? And which sugar is also called a table sugar, right? A table sugar is a good example, and it is also called sucrose, right? Having the formula what? C12H2O 11, right? Or simply C12H22O 11. Now I will jump to the next detailed definition of carbohydrates. So it's a compound. Now a bit more detailed form, or you can say more detailed advanced form or definition of carbohydrate is that it is a compound that has an aldehyde or ketone having multiple OH groups on a carbon chain. That is not branched. Now the two most important carbohydrate examples are, I will now show you. I have to rub it again because I want you to learn the formulas. So as I've just explained, now it is also a compound that has an aldehyde or a ketone, and it has multiple OH groups on carbon chain and that are not branched. So let's draw the structures. So now the two most important carbohydrate examples are, I'm going to draw over here, CH double bond O. This is an aldehyde group, right? And then CH. It's a long chain again. CH. Then again CH. Then again a CH. And then CH2OH having a OH group attached here and OH group attached here, just as I mentioned in the definitions. OH group here. CHO, CHOH, 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 CH2OH. We have to count the numbers because it's a long compound. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. So this is an example, right? Now it's an aldose. You call it an aldose, right? Aldose, or that is, it has got an aldehydic group. So like I've just said that it is called an aldose. This is an example of an aldose. Because why we call it aldose? It has an aldehydic group here, CHO, right? So you can call it an aldose because of the aldehydic group, right? Aldehydic carbon, right? And you can also, now you will count the number of carbons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it can also be called a hexose, HEXOSE, a hexose, right? Because of the 6 carbon atoms, or simply aldohexose, right? So this is a first example of a carbohydrate, an aldose that contains an aldehyde group or a hexose or 6 carbon atom because of the 6 carbon atoms present in them, or you can simply, because of that, you can also call it or aldohexose. That is aldohexose. This compound can be called as an aldohexose. Now I'll draw the next example. So a ketohexose would be like that, simply CH2OH. Then with a carbon, a ketonic group, C double bond O, then C, then again C, then again C, then again, how many C's? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. CH2OH. Right? Now you can count the number 1, 2, 3, 4. You can number them even 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's a ketohexose. That is, of course, 6 carbon atoms due to 6 carbons, right? And its structure would be like, you can say, I've shown you the structure. Now here you can fill the valencies and you will get the OH groups, and you will get the structure of a ketohexose structure. So this was simply the two basic sugar and derivatives. So it's simply the chemistry of sugars and derivatives, or its derivatives, right? What it is? It is a chemistry of sugars and derivatives. So I can show you another example of a glucose molecule, right, and a fructose molecule. Though I have just explained you, but I need to draw more structure so that you can understand. C double bond O and an H, right, and then of course carbon, right, with the OH group, and then of course an H, because they're alternate OH and H groups. Then again a carbon, then H, and here OH, then again a carbon with OH and with the H, then again with a carbon, that is H and OH, and then CH2OH. How many carbons now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's a glucose. You have heard this word for many times, glucose. So this is a glucose molecule or an aldohexose. Glucose or an aldohexose. Now I draw another structure. CH2OH. With practice, you will be able to draw the structures easily. A ketonic group, then carbon with a hydrogen, and then of course OH, then carbon with OH, because I said that alternately they will be written now. H, then of course carbon, OH, and then carbon with hydrogen, and then this CH2OH. So this is a fructose, right? Fructose. Now carbohydrate family has its own terminology. Now glucose molecule, glucose structure, an aldohexose, and a fructose. So this will be called as fructose, as I just wrote, or a ketohexose. A ketohexose. So simply carbohydrate that has an aldehyde group is termed as an aldose, and with a ketonic group is termed as a ketose. A 6-membered carbohydrate is called an hexose, and a 5-membered carbohydrate is called a pentose. And on combining, it becomes, aldohexose is an aldose, whereas that has 6 carbon atoms, and ketopentose is a ketose that has 5 carbon atoms, right? Ketose is also termed as pentulose. I will draw next time in my next lecture. I will show you what is pentulose. It is also a carbohydrate that is called ketopentose. It's a ketone that has 5 carbon atoms, and we also call it pentulose. So carbohydrates are the most ample compounds on our planet, and cellulose is the polymerized form of that includes the examples of carbohydrates, and cellulose is the polymerized form of the carbohydrate, right? And examples are I've just shown you sugars, that is table sugar, lactose, milk sugar, and there are other examples also, shells of arthropods, all the arthropods, right? Arthropods. This is something very interesting which I thought that I must show. The shells of arthropods, right? Shells of arthropods. Shells of arthropods. Now what are arthropods? Are the animals that are invertebrates, that doesn't have the vertebral column, so they are called invertebrates belonging to phylum Arthropoda, right? So examples are insects, crustaceans, insects, what? Arthropods are what? Insects and crustaceans and lobsters. Now, why I'm writing these examples of these ocean animals? All contain huge amount of carbohydrates. They contain, the shells of these arthropods contain huge amount of carbohydrates, right? That's why I am writing this, because I found this very interesting, that now the shells of arthropods, that is the animals that are invertebrates. What are arthropods? Now today you learn this term also. What are arthropods? Arthropods are the animals that are invertebrates, right? And belonging to which phylum? Phylum Arthropoda, right? And these examples are insects, crustaceans, and lobsters that contain a huge amount of carbohydrates in them. So you can give the examples of even these sea animals when you are explaining somebody what are carbohydrates, and which animals, ocean animals, contain the most or huge amount of carbohydrate. You can write, you can tell these names also. So I hope you will like this video, because it was a short video. I've explained a very short video for you, for my viewers, because it becomes very interesting when you go further to this series. But I thought that I must make a short video, so that would be more easier for you to understand and for you to memorize and for learning, right? It becomes easier for everyone. So I'm back again. So I hope you liked today's video, and now today you are now able to tell anybody who's asking you what are carbohydrates. You can simply explain them, and you can give them the examples of the simplest sugars, starting from sucrose and fructose, and then you can go further into the depth of that the carbohydrate structures, and you can tell them what is an aldose and why we call it an aldose, and what is a ketose, why we call it ketose, and why we call it aldohexose. If it has a 6 carbons, then we can call it an hexose, and if an aldehyde group is there, that means it's an aldohexose, and if a keto group is there, that it's a ketohexose. So it's like that. And then I've explained you different types of the carbohydrate structures, and then I've explained you the 2 examples of glucose and fructose molecules, and then I've also explained you what are arthropods, because arthropods are the animals that are invertebrates, that has no vertebral column in them, and they belong to phylum Arthropoda. Because I'm basically a student of biology also, so I know these all things with the chemistry. I know biology also. I've read this in quite a detail, so in depth, and I used to get good marks in biology also, that is zoology. So now the shells of arthropods, they contain a lot of a huge amount of carbohydrates in them. So this was also one of the very interesting things. So I hope you liked today's video, and you are familiar with this topic that is called carbohydrates, and this is we have just started the topic. So I will see which topics are included in your course and that are more appealing and more absorbing. I will definitely come up with those topics for you, for my viewers who are interested in learning carbohydrates, right? And I hope you like this video, and hopefully we'll meet again with something new and something more interesting. Thank you very much.